This mini lecture is intended to review and supplement what you learned from the chapter More Than a Feeling, Commas by Jenny Beranek from her book Kiss My Asterisk, A Feisty Guide to Punctuation and Grammar. First, I want to look at a few classic examples about why commas matter. This first example shows how comma placement can make a difference in meaning. Let's eat, comma, Grandma, means you're ready for dinner, whereas let's eat Grandma, no comma, means you want to eat your grandma. In the second example, a woman without her man is nothing. If you use commas, it sounds like this. A woman without her man is nothing. Whereas if you use a colon instead of a comma, the meaning of the sentence changes completely. A woman without her man is nothing. I don't like the end being you're an illiterate moron if you don't use punctuation, but punctuation is powerful. This one is my favorite example. We invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. The important punctuation here is the comma after JFK, which indicates that this series is a list. Without the comma, the sentence reads, we invited the strippers, JFK, and Stalin. In this example, it appears that the strippers' names are JFK and Stalin. This is an example of the much debated Oxford comma, which is the comma after JFK. Many people believe it isn't necessary, and will fight about it. This example shows how helpful it can be. We're going to be looking at some rules and examples from Kiss My Asterisk, but most of the time, if you read carefully and thoughtfully, you can figure out using your common comma sense. It is easier for native speakers of English than for those of you who learned English as your second language. But in the end, the goal is to communicate your meaning. So, to the best of your ability, use punctuation that does that. So the Oxford comma example that we already looked at, the ones with the strippers and JFK and Stalin, it's an example of what Beranek calls the serial comma. The serial comma separates items in a series or list. So, for example, I went to the store to buy bananas, comma, cereal, comma, and milk. The simplest version of the serial comma usually comes at the end of the sentence, in which you have your main part of the sentence with subject and verb, followed by a list. Item 1, comma. Item 2, comma. Item 3, period. Most students do a pretty good job with these kinds of commas. The second type of comma Beranek talks about are the ones used in compound sentences. Compound sentences are when you combine two complete sentences with the words for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so, otherwise known as fanboys, an acronym to help you remember. When you have a compound sentence, you want to include a comma before the fanboys. So, for instance, you have, I went to soccer practice, comma, but I was late. Sentence, comma, fanboys, sentence. Keep your eyes open for fanboys. They are often a comma opportunity. But note that you don't need a comma if the phrase following fanboys is not a complete sentence. This will happen when you don't have a subject and a verb. So, you will need a comma if you say, I went to soccer practice, comma, but I was late. But you won't need a comma if you say, I went to practice but was late. Notice the I was gone in the second half of that sentence. Another example of when to use commas is when you have a complex sentence. Complex sentences combine an opener phrase with a complete sentence and require a comma after the opener phrase. Opener phrases usually begin with some of the words in this chart and often indicate when, where, why, and under what circumstances. So, for example, you have your opener phrase, after class, followed by a big old comma, followed with the full sentence, the students went to the coffee shop. Another type of comma is the interrupter. Usually, an interrupter gives us more information about a noun, and sometimes it clarifies information. An example is, my brother, comma, Jim, comma, came to visit from college. Notice that a comma goes on either side of the interruption. First part of the sentence, comma, interrupter, comma, second part of the sentence. Even longer phrases that interrupt will need both commas. My brother, comma, the orthodontist and jazz singer from Toledo, comma, came to visit. This one should be familiar since we've already talked about dialogue. But as a reminder, yes, you need to include a comma after tags and quote introductions. So, the duck said, comma, meow, period, quotation mark. Finally, you need to include commas when you list descriptive adjectives. The fat, comma, orange cat ate lasagna. The short, comma, perky, comma, nerdy, comma, nice, comma, annoying English teacher won't stop talking. These are a lot of rules to remember, and it's okay if you forget. Often, just slowing down, paying attention, and thinking about it a bit will help you figure out if you need a comma. Try to read your sentence like you're an idiot that doesn't know anything about what you're talking about. And consider if a comma will help or hinder the meaning. And when in doubt, use your comma sense.